My name is Mary. I'm 66 years old now, and for most of my life, I kept this story buried deep inside me. I didn't talk about it, not to friends, not even to my own children. But as I've gotten older, I've come to believe that our stories deserve to be told, especially when they carry the weight of truth. I was 27 when my father died. My mother had passed away when I was only 15, so for most of my adult life, it was just the three of us, me, my father, and my older brother David. We lived in a quiet neighborhood, in a modest home filled with warm meals, familiar routines, and the kind of silence that felt comforting, not lonely. Dad was everything to me. He was gentle, thoughtful, and wise. He wasn't perfect, but he was kind, and he always made sure I knew I was loved. When he got sick, I gave up a teaching opportunity in another city to stay home and care for him. I never regretted it, not until later. When he passed, I was devastated. But I wasn't the only one who changed. David, my brother, he was older, stronger, and always a little distant. We never had the kind of bond one wished for. Still, I never feared him. Not until after the funeral. That was the day everything began to shift. At first, it was little things. He'd make comments about my clothes or criticize the way I kept the house. Then he started making decisions without even mentioning them to me, selling Dad's car, throwing away old photo albums, locking his study like it held state secrets. I thought maybe it was just his way of grieving. Maybe he needed control to cope, but it wasn't about grief. It was about power. Within weeks, I wasn't allowed to leave the house without telling him where I was going. If I talked on the phone, he'd ask who I was speaking to. When a childhood friend came by one day to check in on me, he told her I wasn't home, and I was standing right upstairs, listening in disbelief. He never struck me. But that doesn't mean it wasn't abuse. He made me feel small, stupid, invisible. Every decision I made was questioned. Every word I said was corrected. It was like living under constant surveillance. And worst of all, no one believed me. Everyone else, David was a dutiful older brother, trying to care for his grieving sister. He went to church. He volunteered. He helped neighbors with their groceries. I watched as people admired him while I shrank more and more inside myself. I stopped painting. I stopped writing. I stopped dreaming, and then one day, Grandma June showed up. She hadn't visited in years. She was in her 80s, walked with a cane, and had silver hair that looked like soft clouds. She knocked on the door with her usual sharp rhythm, and when I opened it, she stared at me for a long moment. She said nothing. Just stared. Then she hugged me tighter than I ever remember her hugging anyone. David tried to charm her, of course. Told her he was taking great care of me. She nodded politely and asked if she could speak to me alone. That was the first time I ever saw him hesitate. But he left the room. Grandma sat me down, took my hands in hers, and looked me dead in the eye. "Mary," she said, "you don't look like you." And just like that, I crumbled. I didn't even try to explain. I just cried, sobbed, really, while she held me, rocking me gently the way I imagined she once did when I was a baby. I told her everything. How scared I was. How trapped I felt. How no one saw the truth. She didn't ask for proof. She didn't make excuses for him. She just said, "Get your things. You're coming with me." That was the first time in months I felt like I could breathe. David protested, of course. He tried everything: shame, anger, even guilt. He said I was abandoning the family, that I was too emotional, that I was just confused. But Grandma wasn't afraid of him. She stood up straight, looked him square in the eye, and said, "She's not yours to control. Not now. Not ever." I'll never forget the look on his face when we walked out that door. Her apartment was small, just 2 rooms and a little kitchen, but it felt like heaven. No cameras, no locks, no cold stares or silencing words. Just peace. She made me tea every evening. We'd sit in silence, or sometimes she'd read to me from her old mystery novels. Slowly, I began to return to myself. I picked up a paintbrush for the first time in years. I started journaling again, just a few words a day, then whole pages. I found a part-time job at a library nearby. Nothing glamorous, but it gave me purpose. Eventually, I moved out on my own. I got married, had 2 children, and built a quiet life. David and I never reconciled. And while that still saddens me, I know now that letting go was the healthiest choice I ever made. Today, I share this story not because I want pity, but because someone somewhere might need to hear it. You are not alone. You are not invisible. And you can start over no matter how late it seems. I carry scars, but I also carry strength. And I owe that to one little old woman who knocked on my door, looked into my eyes, and reminded me who I was. Thank you, Grandma June. If this story moved you, please support our channel by giving this video a like, subscribing, and turning on notifications. We share real stories that deserve to be heard. Thank you for being with us.